Welcome to another episode of Boring Historian. Tonight, we leave behind the noise of the present and drift gently into the past. The world may feel busy, but here, time moves slowly. You are in a quiet corner of history. There are no tests to take, no dates to memorize, only stories, soft and slow, like cozy fire soothing you to dreamland. So close your eyes if you wish. Let the world fade, and together, let's fall asleep in the company of time. Today, we're traveling back to the Roman Empire, a civilization famous for its legions, emperors, aqueducts, and for putting giant stone penises in their gardens. Yes, really. And no, this isn't a joke. For ancient Romans, the phallus wasn't rude or inappropriate. It was sacred. It was protective, and it was everywhere. Let's begin with a gentle walk through a Roman garden. You are walking along a stone path lined with rose bushes. It's the garden of a wealthy Roman villa. Cicadas hum gently. A fountain trickles nearby. And there, beside the grapevines, you spot it. A statue. It's carved from marble, about 3 feet tall. It's a plump little man with a rustic hat, and he's grinning. He has an enormous, exaggerated penis. Disproportionate, almost comical, but unmistakable. This is Priapus, and he's not here by accident. Priapus was a minor Roman god. He wasn't part of the elite gods like Jupiter or Mars, but he was popular, very popular. He was the god of fertility, gardens and orchards, livestock, and, somewhat humorously, male genitalia. In fact, Priapus was always depicted with a huge, permanent erection. It was his most defining feature. Not just artistic flair, it was the whole point. But why, you ask? Because to the Romans, fertility meant life, growth, abundance. A healthy garden meant food. A full vineyard meant wine. Fertility in the fields was just as sacred as fertility in the bedroom. Priapus represented that. And his prominent phallus wasn't meant to shock. It was meant to bless. Priapus wasn't just about growth. He was also about protection. In ancient Roman belief, laughter and embarrassment could drive away evil spirits. The sight of a grotesque, exaggerated image, especially one related to sex, could scare off bad luck, curses, or thieves. So, imagine you're a would-be thief, sneaking into a villa garden at night. You turn a corner, and boom, there's Priapus, staring at you with a grin and a threat carved beneath. If you steal from this garden, I will seize you with this. Crude? Yes. Effective? Also yes. These threats weren't meant to be taken literally. They were magical warnings, protective spells, in a way, and they were everywhere. Priapus might have ruled the gardens, but the penis as a symbol went far beyond. In Pompeii, archaeologists have found dozens of phalluses carved into stone walls. Some point the way to brothels, others seem to simply exist for good luck. There were wind chimes shaped like flying penises, called tintinnabula. These weren't hidden in bedrooms. They hung in doorways and kitchens. The idea was that the sound of the bells, combined with the image, would ward off bad spirits. Even children wore phallic amulets called fascinum, little charms meant to protect them from the evil eye. Today, we might raise an eyebrow at such images, but for the Romans, it was just practical magic. The evil eye, a kind of supernatural curse brought on by envy or ill will, was feared across the ancient world. In Rome, it was believed that the phallus could deflect this power. Why? Because the phallus was a symbol of life force, of vigor, of vitality. Think of it like a battery, full of creative energy. And so, a statue of Priapus in the garden wasn't just decoration. It was a spiritual firewall. There's another layer to this. The Romans believed that laughter could disrupt dark magic. That humor had power. That being made to laugh, even by something shocking or vulgar, could break a curse. So when guests saw Priapus in the garden and chuckled nervously, that was part of the ritual. Their laughter itself was protective. This is known as apotropaic magic, using symbols or actions to turn away harm. And it's why Priapus is almost always smiling. In modern times, erotic images are usually hidden, private. But in Roman times, sexual imagery was often public, religious, or humorous. It was tied to fertility, to luck, to the cycles of nature. In homes, baths, and taverns, you might see paintings of gods and mortals in intimate scenes, carvings of male and female anatomy, scenes from myths with suggestive content. But these weren't meant to titillate, at least not always. They were often about celebrating life, reproduction, and divine energy. It was a different mindset, one where the sacred and the sensual weren't far apart. Priapus was not originally Roman. He came from the Greeks, likely from the region of Lampsacus in Asia. The Greeks had their own complex relationship with sexuality and the divine. But it was the Romans who turned Priapus into a household name, or at least a household statue. He was absorbed into Roman religion and folk practice, and his worship became surprisingly common. There are even surviving poems, vulgar, funny, and full of insults, spoken in the voice of Priapus himself. Let us read a gentle version of one such poem. I am the keeper of this little plot, with vegetables, fruit, and forget-me-nots. If you come to steal, beware my wrath, for I'll chase you down the garden path. These poems, often painted onto walls or carved into stone, show that Priapus wasn't just a silent statue, he had a voice. A crude, clever, protective voice. So what happened? Why don't we see Priapus statues in gardens anymore? With the rise of Christianity in the later Roman Empire, attitudes toward sex, nudity, and religious symbolism began to shift. The human body, once celebrated, became associated with sin. Fertility symbols were gradually seen as obscene. Statues of Priapus were buried, hidden, or destroyed. Erotic art was removed from public spaces. By the Middle Ages, even mentioning these things was taboo. What was once a symbol of protection had become a symbol of shame. In the 18th century, the ruins of Pompeii were uncovered. There, beneath volcanic ash, lay a city frozen in time, including its erotic art. Priapus was there, at the entrance to a wealthy merchant's home, his enormous phallus weighing down a scale. Visitors were shocked. Victorian scholars tried to hide or censor these images. Some museums locked them away in secret cabinets, open only to men of high standing. But over time, people began to realize this wasn't smut. It was culture, religion, history. So why did Romans put giant penises in their gardens? Because they believed in protection, in fertility, in humor, in magic. Because to them, the human body wasn't something to hide. It was something to honor, to use as a shield against darkness. Because laughter could drive away evil. Because gardens needed blessings. And maybe, just maybe, because they found joy in the absurdity of life. The sun is setting over the Roman villa. The statue of Priapus stands quietly among the grapevines, surrounded by blooming flowers and the soft buzz of bees. To modern eyes, he might seem strange. But to the Romans, he was a friend, a guardian, a bringer of life. And perhaps, after all this time, he still has something to teach us about not taking life, or ourselves, too seriously. Thank you for watching Boring Historian. By now I know you are fast asleep. So sleep well, and remember, even the weirdest bits of history have their place in the garden of the past.